Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about the science of studying. How you can actually learn more effectively, lock that information in, and really apply it to, well, every part of your life. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to bust a huge myth. Then, we'll build the foundation you need for real learning. After that, I'll show you the single most powerful tool you can use. Then, we'll talk about how to lock all that knowledge in. And finally, how to get the motivation to actually make it all happen. Okay, first things first, we have got to talk about this massive mistake. It's a trap, really, that almost every single one of us falls into when we try to study.
So let me just start by asking you a question. What if that go-to study method, the one you've been using your entire life, the one you swear by, what if it's actually sabotaging you?
I know it sounds kind of crazy, but the science on this is crystal clear. A lot of what we think works for studying, it's just plain wrong. And the number one culprit, the biggest offender of them all, is that habit of just rereading your notes or the textbook over and over and over again. And this right here, this is the heart of the problem. See, when you reread something, you get this huge boost of confidence. You feel like you know it inside and out. But then the test comes, and all that confidence, it just vanishes because it doesn't actually translate to a good grade. It's what scientists call a false sense of mastery. So if that's what not to do, what should we be doing? Well, let's start by building a solid foundation. Think of it like building a fortress for your studying. These are the absolute non-negotiables. When you look at what the most effective students are actually doing, it's almost laughably simple. First, they schedule dedicated time to study. We're talking 2 or 3 super focused sessions every day. And second, they are absolutely ruthless about getting rid of distractions. The phone? It's not just on silent. It's in another room. They find a place where they can be totally alone. And get this, here's where the magic of consistency comes in. The research shows that it only takes about 2 or 3 days of doing this, of studying at the same time in the same way, before your brain actually starts to expect it. It adapts to that rhythm, which makes getting into that deep focus state so much easier. All right, so we've thrown rereading out the window. So what do we replace it with? Well, this next tool, this is the big one. It's the single most powerful learning technique out there, and it's not some new fad. It's backed by more than a century of solid research. And this requires a total mind shift. You have to stop thinking of tests as just a way to get a grade. Testing yourself is an incredible tool for learning. Every time you test yourself, you're forcing your brain to pull that information out of storage. That action of retrieving it is what actually builds and strengthens the memory pathways. It's so much more powerful than just passively looking at the information again.
There's this amazing old study, I'm talking all the way back in 1917, that just shows this perfectly. They had a group of kids read a biography one time. Then they split them up. Group A just kept rereading the text, but Group B, they put the text away and were just told to try and remember what they'd read, just recall it in their heads.
And the results? They were staggering. The kids who only read it once and then just tested themselves, they did way better than the kids who reread it a bunch of times. It's just proof positive. Forcing your brain to pull information out is the best way to make it stick. Okay, so now that you've got the testing effect in your toolkit, let's add a couple more powerful techniques. These are going to help you really solidify everything you're learning and even speed up the whole process. So the top students, they have 2 main ways of reinforcing what they learn. First up, they teach other people. Seriously, trying to explain a concept to someone else is the ultimate test of whether you actually understand it. And second, they use this really cool strategic trick called gap effects. And this is just wild. When you're studying, if you just pause for like 5 or 10 seconds, a part of your brain called the hippocampus, which is crucial for memory, just goes into overdrive. It starts replaying what you just learned at 20 to 30 times the normal speed. Think about that. These tiny little breaks are like a learning superpower for locking stuff in. Last but not least, look, having all the right techniques is great, but it's not the whole story. To actually do this stuff consistently, you need fuel in the tank. You need a really powerful reason to keep going. You need motivation. So when researchers really looked into the minds of the best students, they found something kind of surprising. What drove them wasn't the pressure of a big exam or just wanting to get an A. Nope. Their real motivation came from connecting the daily grind of studying to these huge, long-term aspirational goals, like a big vision for their entire future. Basically, they had this really powerful vision of how doing well now would completely change their lives, how it would impact their families. It was never just about passing a class, it was about building a future. And that big picture why, that's the ultimate fuel. It's the emotional energy you need to make all these habits actually stick, day in and day out. So, that really just leaves us with one final question to think about. The techniques are all here, they're super clear, but what's your big aspirational goal? What's the thing that's going to fuel your efforts and make sure these new powerful habits stick around for good?